Welcome to Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist. I'm Reverend Matthew, and I serve as the minister of this congregation of engagement and love and transformation. And this morning I greet you with words of welcome from the Reverend Erica Hewitt, my colleague and friend. We welcome all of you to this service, especially those who are searching for a spiritual home. Many of us were once, too, seeking for something larger than ourselves that we could belong, a sense of rootedness to hold us in a world of conflict that together we might create meaning. And we do that well here, though not perfectly. In this congregation, we strive not for perfection, but for authenticity and connection. And whether it's your first time or your 100th time with us, we hope that you'll find here questions that stretch you, people that befriend you, and a liberal religious tradition that challenges you to join us in an open-hearted engagement, courageous, loving, and inspirational transformation for ourselves and for our community at large. And so in this spirit, I would like to invite you to welcome one another. So if you are online, please turn on your cameras, and if we can see them on the screens, they can wave to us. And once they do that, all of us will turn around and look at our camera and wave back. As Debbie, one of our pastoral assistant leaders, says with this greeting, we are glad that all of you are here today because we are better and we are stronger when we are together. Our Sundays are not possible, of course, without all of us gathering, but they are also impossible without the time and talent of our welcoming, hospitality, children's religious exploration, and audiovisual teams. So along with Jean-Bour and Derek, our today's pastoral associates, Robin, who is on the screen as our Zoom host, Stacy, our religious exploration professional for children under 10, and Chris, our music director, I offer all of those who are serving our community this morning our gratitude. Thank you for all that you do to make this time and place a place and a time for finding and belonging and meaning. Now, today is the first Sunday in a series that seeks meaning from a concept that's very active in popular culture right now, the multiverse. And if you are wondering, oh no, what is the multiverse? Well, let's share a short video of what we are learning about it with you.
What is the multiverse? The multiverse is a hypothetical group of multiple universes. Together, these universes comprise
everything that exists, the entirety of space, time, matter, energy, information, and the physical laws and constants that describe them. Multiple universes have been hypothesized in cosmology, physics, astronomy, religion,
philosophy, transpersonal psychology, music, and all kinds of literature, particularly in science fiction, comic books, and fantasy. In these contexts, parallel universes are also called alternate universes.
Quantum universes, interpenetrating dimensions, parallel universes, parallel dimensions, parallel worlds, parallel realities, quantum realities, alternate realities, alternate timelines, alternate dimensions, and dimensional planes. Examples of the multiverse that you might be familiar with are
It's a Wonderful Life, the 1946 holiday classic, when George Bailey wishes he had never been born. We see an alternate reality of the world without him.
Most Star Trek shows from the original series through to today incorporate the Mirror Universe, a dystopian parallel dimension filled with shadow versions of familiar characters.
Even the song, If I Were a Rich Man, sung by Tevye in the 1964 musical Fiddler on the Roof, is another example. In his daydreaming, he pictures a world different from the one he is living in and illustrates an imagined parallel universe.
While the multiverse sounds like a trip into Unitarian Universalist Rod Sterling's Twilight Zone, it is actually much more close to home than that. It is the potential and possibility of our imagination for both life-giving and destructive realities.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
We are sharing all this with you as we will be shifting into the multiverse next month in our Sunday services. Exploring the multiverse together, we can find great potential and possibility within.
Among.
Beyond our Mountain Vista home.
As you can see, we Unitarian Universalists have several different sources as the means to make meaning together. And so today, science and story, personal experience and pop culture, fact and fiction will be our tools for discovering new meaning within the multiverse. And as we enter it today, we'll be drawing upon all of those and more to engage our moral imagination and love our multifaceted world, transform it, and our understanding of ourselves as a world shared with many different meanings. Welcome. It is good to be together. One of our sources where we find meaning are the words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. And so we light our chalice then as an invitation to recall those individuals, past, present, and future, who have been a support, have been a challenge to each of us.
Be with us now, all you who have gone before, you, our ancestors and teachers, you who walked and loved and faithfully tended this earth. Be present to us now that we may carry on the legacy you bequeathed us. Aloud and silently in our hearts, we say your names and see your faces.
All of you whom we live with and work with on this endangered planet, be with us now. Fellow humans and siblings of other species, open us to our collective will and wisdom. Aloud and silently, we say your names and picture your faces. And we'll pause if you would speak or simply hold their names in your hearts.
Lastly, we invoke the beings of the future. You who will come after us on this earth, be with us now. It is for your sakes, too, that we work to heal our world. We cannot picture your faces or say your names. You have none yet, but we would feel the reality of your claim on life. It helps us to be faithful in the work that must be done, so that there will be for you as there was for our ancestors, blue skies, fruitful land, clear waters.
Our first song, Gather the Spirit, will be projected I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join your voices together, and Joel will be our song leader. A September 11th anniversary prayer by the Reverend John Saxon. This day is simply one more day on the calendar, the 11th of September. Another beautiful sunny day on the cusp between summer and fall. And yet this day, September 11th, will never be just another day on the calendar, as we remember that beautiful sunny day in September 21 years ago. A day that began like so many others, with people going about their ordinary day-to-day lives. And then, in the brief span of a few hours, ended in shock and disbelief. As airplanes became weapons of mass destruction, skyscrapers burned, and many fell to the ground. Smoke and ash filled the air on a day that is painful to remember but impossible to forget. And so we pause to remember. We remember with gratitude all the heroes and heroines of that day, the firefighters and first responders who demonstrated such courage in the midst of crisis. We remember in sorrow the innocents who perished, the stockbrokers and janitors, office workers, passengers and bystanders, individuals of all ages, who were victims of such calculated and senseless violence. We remember with hope the voices that call and still call for unity in the face of division and hatred, and urged peace even as our nation prepared for war. We remember in bewilderment the ways that the events of that day changed who we are as a nation, and we are still haunted by them. And remembering the terror and violence of that day, we rededicate ourselves this day to raising our voices against fanaticism, religious intolerance, racism, violence, terror, and hatred in all of its forms, and doing whatever we can to create a future in which all people can live in freedom, community, and peace without fear. May it be so, because we make it so. As a part of our remembrance here at Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist, we have built a temporary altar out in front in our grove of mesquite trees. It's a place for you to go and pause individually and share publicly as a community our memories and our remembrances. If you'd like to leave a remembrance today, there are pens and paper and magnets out there so your thoughts and feelings can stay for the week. Or you may have brought something with you, like Chris has this morning.
This is a reading from the Siddur Shar Zahav, the prayer book of the Golden Gate congregation in San Francisco. It's a reading for Tisha B'Av, which is the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av, and it commemorates the destruction of the first and second temples in Jerusalem. Prior to the codification of Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Day of Remembrance, it was also used as a sort of a de facto remembrance of the Holocaust, because many tragedies occurred on that particular day, including in 1942, the Nazis began deporting Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto on this date. We need one another when we mourn and seek comfort. We need one another when we are in trouble and need help. We need one another when we could accomplish some great purpose, but we cannot do this alone. We need one another in our defeats when, with encouragement, we might strive again, and in the hour of our success when we seek someone to share our joy. We need one another when we come to die, that gentle hands may prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. We best live when we bring to others our comfort and our solace. Oseh shalom bimromav, huya oseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol ha'olam, v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace in the heavens make peace here on earth for all of us and for everyone on the planet. And together we say, Amen.
And as a response, our sacred song is Winds Be Still. I invite you to remain seated as Chris and Joel lead us in this song. The words will be projected. by Unitarian Universalist Charles Thomas. We are living in a universe, possibly part of a multiverse. We are living in the Milky Way, a part of the local group of galaxies, a part of a supercluster of galaxies. We are living in a solar system, in a spiral arm of the Milky Way. We are living on a planet powered by the sun. We are living on a planet called Earth with rocks and leaves and birds and trees and oceans and mountains and lakes and everything beautiful and everything good to care for as they care for us. We are living today with time to do good for ourselves and for one another. I invite you now to a time of contemplation led by Jean Bohr to consider and to ponder the science of the multiverse.
Knowing of my interest in things scientific, Reverend Matthew invited me to speak about what the word multiverse means from a more scientific perspective. Contemporary physics and astronomy have firmly established that there are numerous ways that multiple or parallel universes can theoretically exist and be created on the cosmological side, but none can be actually detected. However, on the quantum physics side, the most controversial and philosophical explanation of the multiverse is called the many-world interpretation. This hypothesis has many adherents and detractors as well. The main idea here is that every time a quantum measurement is made in some experiment with a binary predicted outcome, say yes or no, or up or down, the actual outcome seen by an observer in this universe instantaneously creates a duplicate universe in which the opposite result is the one observed. The universe splits into two separate universes that we don't experience happening. This interpretation of quantum mechanics was formulated by Hugh Everett for his doctoral dissertation at Princeton University in 1957. Its title is A Theory of the Universal Wave Function. It opened up a Pandora's box of controversy that is still not settled. Everett's thesis declared that the wave function never collapses. A wave function in quantum physics is a mathematical description of the quantum state of an isolated system. A collapse occurs when a measurement is made by an observer. However, the keyword isolated was enlarged by Everett to include the entire universe. To quote Philip Ball, a British science writer for the online Quanta magazine, quote, "It is the most extraordinary, alluring, and thought-provoking of all the ways in which quantum mechanics has been interpreted. In its most familiar guise, the many-world interpretation suggests that we live in a near infinity of universes, all superimposed in the same physical space, but mutually isolated and evolving independently. In many of these universes, there exist replicas of you and me, all but one indistinguishable from us, yet leading other lives," unquote. What makes the many-world interpretation so difficult is that there is no way to prove it. Everett's interpretation speaks not only of quantum mechanics, but also of what knowledge and understanding means to science itself. It asks, what sort of theory will scientists demand or accept to claim to know the world. Everett proposed that it's our concept of reality that's at fault. We only see a single outcome of an experiment, but in fact, all results occur. But the outcomes have a separate physical existence too. The question is, so how does the split happen? This is still much debated by the scientific community. According to the many-world interpretation, the entire universe is considered to be in a gigantic superposition. A superposition is the ability of a quantum state to be in multiple potentialities at the same time, until it is measured. But some of these states, when there are so many, as in a superposed universe, can evolve and thus break down, making certain realities distinct and isolated from one another. In this sense, worlds are not created by measurement, but only separated. So it might be better to not say splitting, but instead rather speak of the unraveling of two realities that were previously just possible futures of a single reality. This is a subtle distinction, but has important philosophical implications. Since we make huge numbers of conscious and unconscious decisions every day, the Everett model predicts that by the end of your lifetime, you may have created a vast, approaching an infinite number of other universes. But you can never determine which one you're in. I'm going to offer my own thoughts to this line of theorizing, the idea of separation and individuation as a manifestation of the multiverse. Every human being alive today occupies a physical space-time. No human ever occupies the same space as another human, except for the brief period of time that you are in the womb sharing the space-time of your mother. Thus, after birth, every person occupies a unique space-time. We are all separate individuals populating our common universe. But the nearly 8 billion of us, in a very real sense, do occupy individual private worlds. Our physical activities contribute to the state of the shared outer universe. And what else separates us is our own consciousness. As our life unfolds, we each have experiences and life events by which we construct our own unique worldview. We are our own ontology. We develop our own perspective. We do share many externally imbued commonalities, such as language and culture and current era histories. We interact with a relatively small number of other humans, and we make judgments of others by the quality of those relationships that we have with one another. Our experiences, memories, and thoughts in our own privileged individual bubble creates both an inner consciousness and a historical timeline from our external interactions and events and our inner imaginations. Our most intimate relationships leave room for unexplored or surprising possibilities, both positive and negative. We are all mysteries to each other, and sometimes even to ourselves. We often make choices about which external bubble we allow to touch our own. Two or more bubbles can conjoin, and we often generate whole clusters of bubbles. We flourish best in a sudsy, frothy, foamy universe. I'm going to end here, but I want to say how wonderful the imagination, vision, tenaciousness, and mental acuity and effort of the scientific community to mathematically model these various interpretations of our possible worlds. In the meantime, Everett's many-world interpretation has opened a floodgate to the imagination of those outside of quantum physics. It opens an incredible abundance of what if possibilities, of wonder, which offers a vast enrichment to human narration. May it be so.
I would now like to invite us into a time of meditation. I invite you to a time of meditation, of breath, of centering, of being present here, in this place, among this people. Much of our human struggle is what we do not know or understand. It is often difficult not to want answers, or even more difficult, not to think we already have them. May we experience what we do not know, not as much as individual failure, but as an invitation to community. May we seek not the true answers so much as the true questions, knowing that the true question makes our lives meaningful, even if sometimes restless journeys. May we be grateful for the restless voices in our communities. Let us take a few moments of silence to listen for the restless voices within ourselves. May we be good company to one another in our questions and our journeys. So may it be.
What if I had made a different decision yesterday? What if I could make a different choice tomorrow? What if I acted differently now, here, in this moment? Imagining what ifs about ourselves, like, well, what if I hadn't eaten the whole thing? Or even those deeper ponderings, what if I was more forgiving, more loving, more kind? These questions are one of our means of living into clarity, of making meaning together in our lives. In all of my wonderings about the past and speculations about the future, ponderings, what if I was different now? I have never, ever considered or realized that I was imagining divergent, parallel, or alternative worlds or entire universes. And yet that's exactly what we do. We craft mental multiverses filled with opportunities and possibilities when we ask questions of ourselves like, what if? Now there are many types of questions that we pose to ourselves about how our lives could have been, might be, can be different. I'm partial to What If, as it's the name of a comic book, a childhood favorite that has recently been renewed in pop culture. What if stories asked if heroes that were motivated by great power comes great responsibility? What if they had power but chose not to have responsibility? I loved these fantastic adventures because they piqued my moral imagination. Familiar heroes and heroines made radically different choices, and alternatives emerged. Parallels diverged. Multiple universes of imagination were born. These comic books demonstrated to me that asking what if or any other number of questions, it filled us with great creative potential and possibility. It opened us up to new ways of being. It's similar to what Jean-Bourg said earlier. By the end of your lifetime, you will have created a vast number, approaching a near infinite number of other universes. And it all takes place inside your own bubble of consciousness. Asking questions, we craft mental multiverses throughout our entire lives. Instead of turning left, you just imagine, what if you turned right and a divergent world is conceived? What if, you might wonder, I had bought that produce when it was on sale, and a parallel world where you have more change in your pocket is envisioned? Or what if I had not misplaced my passport? Now, this last what if may not be one that you have considered, but it's one that I've pondered twice, and most recently this last week. On Monday, Stephanie and I traveled south for some routine dentistry. And several years ago, during a trip to Mexico to meet migrants and talk with activists and tour aid facilities with other UU ministers, I had crossed over the border and forgotten to bring my passport. Recalling the anxiety, the hassle of returning to the United States back then, last Monday, I really did make it a point to put my passport in my pocket, and I checked it many, many times that morning. However, after the dentist visit, when we got into the line to go through customs and re-enter the United States, I couldn't find it. And as I frantically patted myself down and searched Stephanie's purse, there were many, many what-ifs that popped into my consciousness. What if I had left it in the car? What if I had dropped it at the dentist's office? What if it was something I misplaced coming to or going from the dentist, and those were just about the past? Thinking of the future, I thought, what if I retrace my steps and I can't find it? I speculated. What if there is another uncomfortable exchange with a customs officer waiting? What if they won't let me back in the country? And in that moment, I imagined entire multiverses of possibilities about my past and my future. Some were disastrous. Some, it turns out, were mistaken. Most were simply inconvenient. And yet, out of all of them, I had to choose what I was going to do next, how I was going to live. Because that's exactly where we all live, in this single moment between the past and the future. And it turns out that pondering the past and the future commonly and sometimes frantically, is not only everyday, but it is essentially and uniquely human. The trajectory of our evolution has given us big brains with an innate talent to imagine possibilities. Psychologists call this skill prospection and believe that among animals, humans are the only ones who do it consistently and often. And while we're particularly good at prospecting the future, we can also look backwards and prospect the past. And where the past and the future meet, in this moment, we live. If we have seen, if we have looked, if we have imagined, we sometimes get more clarity from our prospectives, what ifs. That is, we can imagine pasts and futures that create multiverses, that clarify what actions to take, that give us focus on how we will live right now. Well, with Stephanie's insightful ear, I spilled forth a multiverse of what ifs, and she listened and helped me discern what actions to take. As it turned out, my passport was in the car. It had just fallen out of my pocket next to the seat when I had gotten out. But back in the line, before I knew that, before I knew where my passport was at all, when it was not with me, I was in uncertainty. I could not discern what happened or what was going to happen with any assurance. And as much as this is an extreme case, that is exactly where we all live every day, in uncertainty. Oh, we'd prefer, I would at least, to live with assuredness, to know what is going to happen next. But the truth is that our journey through life is not like this at all. As Pema Chodron, Buddhist nun, writes, we can try to construct the uncontrollable by looking for security and predictability, always hoping to be comfortable and safe. But the truth is, we can never avoid uncertainty. And not knowing this is part of the adventure. We question, we ponder, we wonder about ourselves and the world, imagining moral multiverses because it is all unpredictable. It's all uncontrollable. And we are simply seeking some clarity, as only human beings can, in order to live in the midst of it all. We have a wonder-filled life in an uncertain world. We are like glimmering bubbles, each unique and fragile, floating on an ever-changing breeze. And we may cluster, and we may find that we do so much better in the sudsy, frothy, connected universe with other people. But for many, the uncertainty of the world is a terrible reality. And the fragility of life is a source of terror and hatred and violence. But for we Unitarian Universalists, we have chosen to ask questions together as a spiritual path, as a means for each person to come and to question, to pose what ifs, so that we might together begin to lean into and learn how to live. We seek to live into our humanity, ponder all our questions together, and as a community discover answers. And in the coming weeks, that's exactly what we will be doing. We will ponder questions, imagining a multitude of multiverses, not in the pursuit of certainty, but seeking clarity of how it is we live together, each and all, even those who see no alternatives to fear and intolerance and destruction. You see, we are seeking to live in this moment where the past and the future meet, the place where science and story comes together, the community where personal experience and pop culture combine, to better discern how to live on a planet called Earth, with rocks and trees and birds and leaves and oceans and mountains and everything beautiful and everything good to care for as they have cared for us. We seek questions, imagine multiverses so we can live today with time to do good for ourselves and for each other. May it be so. Our final sacred song, Break Not the Circle, will be projected, and Chris and Joel will lead us. Please rise as you're willing and able. Please be seated.
Before we get into our closing remarks, I'd like to remind everyone that the aspects which sustain the congregation are our time, talent, and treasure. If you'd like to spend your time with us, we'll be hosting coffee hour in the Oasis room afterwards, after the service. If you'd like to share your talent with us, I remind you that we have the 9/11 memorial in the front in the Mesquite Grove, where you're welcome to write a message or leave something if you have brought something with you. And if you wish to share your treasure, I remind us that the woven baskets, if you leave money in the woven basket, that will go towards our charity partnership of the month, which is Interfaith Community Services. I believe we'll be hearing more from them next week. Yeah. But they offer a variety of services. It's a huge collection of congregations in Tucson, and they help with things like finding careers for people that don't have jobs, or helping with housing for those who are house insecure, among many, many other things. They're a wonderful institution. And if you leave money in the wooden bowls, those go towards the sustenance of our own personal congregation. The universe usually refers to our cosmic and temporal reality, consisting of the world we walk on, the sun we revolve around, and the farthest reaches of space within which we are but a small, small part. But I refuse to reduce myself to a speck of dust which I might occupy. I may be one among 7 billion on a planet which is but one among billions and billions more. But I concern myself with the here and now. I am a product of the universe that was cultivated for eons before I arrived. And beyond our temporal and cosmic universes, we each reside in our own personal universe. This is not to say that we are each islands, fully detached from one another, but that we each live in a construction that is unique from one another. We are made up of our loved ones, families, friends, teachers, cities, towns, homes, hobbies, and meals. So much less than to suggest that we in our own personal universes are separate. It's actually what makes us united. Without each other, we could not exist as we are. So whether or not there exist parallel or alternate dimensions, I suggest that it is certain we live in a multiverse, as it is proven each and every time we come together. May we, as a deeply intertwined people, continue to enrich our shared universe by affirming our unimaginably large multiverse.